Hello, guys. Welcome back to Peace, Joy, and Love podcast, or Peace, Joy, and Love with L. PJ&L in short. So, anyways, welcome to our first episode. I wanted to talk about toxic self-improvement versus self-love. So, is this a criticism to a lot of self-improvement podcasts out there? No. This is more of a my opinion / make you think a little bit differently about self-improvement podcasts in general. Anyways, why? I was just browsing recently and I realized how much self-improvement is based on the idea or actually utilizing a very unfortunate common mentality of you're not enough or you're not there yet, and speak very similar to what your inner critic sounds like. So the advice they give sounds harsh, but it kind of hits you in a way that you think means that what they say is true. So you tend to follow and believe in what they say. So not to say that there isn't any merit in doing it that way, but I don't like it. From the first time I've seen it, heard it, I don't like it. I don't know where this belief or thought of mine came from, but who says self-improvement needs to be hard? Who says it needs to be a struggle? I mean, yeah, it requires a degree of overcoming, but I think I speak the truth when I say this. We are all self-improving to have a better future, right? Or become our better selves. Don't we want to do that because we believe that it will make us happier, feel better? I think people tend to mix those things up. So let's start by saying the definition of self-improvement and dive deeper as to why it could be a problem. Because I think the common perception is it's always good, is always to be celebrated, but that's not always true. It, like many other things in the world, is very much a double-edged sword. So here is what popped up when I Googled self-development. The improvement of one's knowledge, status, or character by one's own efforts. So I think why most people automatically assume it's a good thing is, well, because they're not harming anyone or they're not using any other resources from other people in order to achieve the goals of improvement. It is the fruits of their own labor and efforts. What could be wrong about that? So, don't get me wrong. I agree that in most cases it is a good thing. And a lot of people have made books, podcasts, lectures, and really, in general, life-changing content and very genuine and very effective advice. And it was made with a very pure intention and a very pure will, which is great. We love that stuff. I also read and listen and watch a lot of those things, like Atomic Habits, the Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I'm not dismissing this content, but in my own journey of self-improvement, I found out there is a line. So if you, my listener, are also into self-improvement, I want to ask one question. Why? It is a simple enough question, but I can guarantee there is going to be a range of answers, both personal and just in general. So just through my own life, more often than not, it's being inspired by some sort of hardship that makes me want to change. Which makes sense after all. If life is all good, why would you want to change it? When that event happens, that hardship happens, you question everything. Sometimes it starts external, and then you go into a victim state. Why did this happen to me? Why specifically me? I was doing so well. What happened? Etc., etc. Or if you dig even deeper, you try everything. You try everything to either resolve the situation or avoid or prevent the situation from ever happening again. So sometimes it started out as just a mechanical problem-solving process and then develops into a more deep spiritual journey where you really search for some soul answers, or it can somehow end up in between all of that. There's a different spectrum in these things, but it is a very human process. I went through this as well. So I had very severe panic attacks after one of my very close relatives had a stroke. And seeing someone you love and depend on throughout your whole life suddenly rendered so much less than themselves. It's like you lost a part of them. I suddenly had to grow up in that moment and toughen up and navigate through all the hospitals, treatment options, appointments. But it was something that happened so sudden. I was just stuck in a very fearful state 24/7. I would constantly monitor her health, her conditions, and paying attention to her every single word and just over obsessing about whether it would happen again. Sometimes I still think about it, but that fear and that stress of obsessing about the situation had put me into a very unhealthy state. Although I never did an official psychological diagnosis, I'm pretty sure I had pretty severe anxiety disorder, and the constant panic attacks that would happen would trigger even more anxiety about, about whether I'm going to have another panic attack somewhere in the near future. It was unpredictable. And that brought me so much more anxiety, and anxiety triggers anxiety. It was a never-ending cycle. And I think the worst part about all that wasn't even the constant on-edgeness or trapped in the worst emotional prison of my own making, or just the isolation of not having anyone to speak to. It was not being able to feel safe in my own body. It's hard to describe if you never experienced it, but in that moment, you don't really feel like your body's is yours anymore. You don't feel any control over it. But it feels more like this ominous enemy that can't wait to destroy you. And it was the amount of insecurity that made me realize why some people make the decision to completely numb themselves or want to sever themselves from this physical existence. Because living was no longer safe. Being in your body was no longer safe. It was the most terrible and awful feeling. I would not wish it upon anyone. So I went a little off the rails, but the point was, I get it. At that point, it really doesn't matter. It just matters that I get out of this state right now. Now, not everyone's journey needs to be a big event like this, but the process is the same. There's a problem, I need a solution. And more often than not, we cannot change our environment, but we can change ourselves. So, this is where self-improvement comes into play. Want to be rich? Here's 186 things you're doing wrong in your daily life. Wake up at 5 a.m., start a cold shower, read this book, commit X hours doing this every day, and advice like this. And when you're in that desperate state, you're willing to try everything. And you go through a process of trial and error. Some things work, some things don't. And until something like perfect falls from the skies, a podcast, a motivation speech, something that pertains to your situation perfectly. And it works like magic. And you start seeing the results instantly. In that way, self-improvement can be addicting. Because whatever you achieved, you know you did it because of you, because of your efforts, because of all the hardships you had to endure. And you're proud. You're so proud of yourself and what you've accomplished. And that's a high that is incomparable to a lot of other things in life. Self-improvement becomes a habit. It becomes something you do. So, how could this possibly be bad? I think I can hear you wonder that question. But here's a story I wanted to tell you. So, you get more into self improvement and you find there's more things you can improve upon. You do the same process as before, but for some reason, it isn't the same. Nothing is working anymore. And it seems like all the efforts you committed to, all the hours, whether it be weeks or years, has all melted away. It's like what you accomplished had never happened. And in your desperation to get back to that high, you question everything again. And poof, suddenly, like bad things starting to stack one after the other. And you're now in the same situation that brought you into self-improvement. So now I ask you again, why are you self-improving? It's something you knew when you started the journey, but somehow it got lost along the way, especially when you focus specifically on the mechanics and the knowledge and not your core reason. Now, I don't know your story. I don't know what your reason is, but mine comes back to love. What I realize, my core reason was because I love myself, that I couldn't bear me to be in that situation any longer. I couldn't bear me to be in that suffering any longer. And love is commitment, and love is effort. And that was very clear in the beginning when I started the whole journey. I wanted to learn to forgive myself, to eat healthier, to manage my stress because I wanted me to live well. It was a pure and powerful emotion. But how did it become toxic? I think it's because my intentions somehow changed in the middle. Managing stress became more about self-management. Doing meditations became like watching television, a way to placate myself. And it became more about avoiding and managing negative emotions not to rise. And it became less about wanting to love myself. It's such a subtle difference. I don't even know when it became like that. And it wasn't until I was doing the same things, but with opposite effect, that I realized that somehow something has changed. I realized then, self-improvement, like so many other things, is a means to an end. But how you use it, why you use it, is much more important than what it is. Something simple, like exercise. It can be self-love. It can be to make yourself more healthy. But it can also be about self-image, about wanting to get revenge on that ex, or an unhealthy coping mechanism that actually leads to more destruction to your health. I think, and again, it's my personal opinion, that truly self-love based improvement is not hard, nor do you need any external motivation. It's not based on the belief that you are somehow not deserving, not worthy enough. It's just love. If I have to make a metaphor to differentiate between toxic self-improvement versus self-love, is that one is like a mom's soft words when you did bad in school. It's okay, honey. I'm sorry you feel so bad. But just because you didn't do well in this one subject doesn't mean anything. And you don't need to do better in order to prove anything. But if you want to do better, I'll do whatever I can to help. And another is a stern mom's voice. I can't believe you embarrassed yourself so badly. You gotta do better next time. I got you a tutor. Lessons start tomorrow. One makes you want to cry, want to lay down, and the other just makes you want to run away from home. They're both motivation, of course, but one feels so much better than the other. And that's why I believe self-improvement doesn't need to be hard. Or should I say it shouldn't be hard. It's not hard to make a decision because of yourself, for yourself. We all want to be happier. It's a natural human desire. And it's why the other path seems like a grind, like biting your teeth down and squeezing and pulling, but you're not budging. Oh, hello, girly girl. Sorry, my cat came. But in summary, do it for the right reason. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it because of the wrong reason. It's just a much harder and much curvier path. Now, here's a little bit of a yapping session. If you do not want to listen to this, you can skip this part. In that case, I hope you have a really great day and experience love for yourself. It's a sensation incomparable to many other things. I'll probably do another episode focused on it. There's so much to talk about. PJ with L out. Okay, here's the yapping session. So I really dislike a lot of, especially ultra-masculine self-improvement podcasts. Some are good, but there are so many that are condescending in their delivery. Their advice might be good, but my goodness, there is so much people with way too much arrogance spitting complete nonsense. And it's not just a criticizing, condescending tone they're just doing. A lot of times what they're preaching is not self-improvement, but poking at insecurity. And it gives the audience the feeling of, I'm doing nothing right, or I'm a lazy bum. And some advice and information is completely false. It's a pure attention grab and cash grab to some vulnerable populations that have a very genuine desire to learn more and improve. And I utterly despise that. And I think it's really sad that people do respond to that. And it's even sadder because I can understand why. I feel like in this world, we almost respond to these voices better because it's a voice we're used to hearing ever since we were children. The criticism, condescension are quite often very commonplace, whether in parenting, teaching, and many other places. It's a familiar tone. And for better or worse, familiar things feel safer. So we listen to them. That being said, and it's because of that, I really want to avoid using any type of that language in this podcast. It is, after all, a podcast focused on peace, joy, and love. Hopefully, I can keep that promise. So, if there is anyone out there that can hear my voice and feel just a little bit more at ease and peace, I'd be the happiest person in the world, even if that person is just me. Okay. As always, thank y'all. PJ&L out.